about it. And some people, dealing with them feels like you're suffering forever. You know, some people are just not easy to love. And some people you just can't get through. And you feel like talking to them is like getting your teeth pulled at the dentist. So what do I want to talk to this person or go to the dentist? I don't. You know? But God has called us to be patient. He told us to be patient and be long-suffering for these people, because there are some people in this world, you try to tell them about Christ and it doesn't work the first time. So you want to tell them again and it doesn't work again. And you give them the gospel the third time. We give them John 3:16. I've walked them down the Romans road. I know everything. I've given them the 4 spiritual laws. I give them a track every day. And finally, you're like, for 15 days, 15 times, they have not told me anything. So forget them. I'm leaving them. I don't need to deal with them anymore. Bye. Or somebody else's problem. God said, be patient, be long-suffering with these people. Because they're going to try you, they're going to torture you, they're not going to come to Christ when you want them to. The book, Walk Across the Room, by Bill Hybels, talks about, walking across the room and starting a relationship with people. And in the relationship, showing them Christ. And he tells stories of people he's witnessed to for 20 years. Can you imagine having a friend that you've been talking to about Christ for 20 years? I can now. But when I was your age, I couldn't think of having a friend for 20 years. Some of you aren't even 20 years old yet. But 20 years. And finally, one day, his friend comes up to him and he says, man, I just want you to know I gave my life to Christ. Well, hallelujah! And to think some people would have written them off in a year. You're pointless. Suffering with them. Suffering in their pain. When they get hurt, you go in and you hurt with them. When there's something wrong with them, you go in and you help them through that. You give up your joy, your frivolities, your pleasures, your times. It goes back to the sacrifice of maybe I wanted to go to this concert and I'm going to suffer by not going to this concert, but I'm going to enter into your pain and help you out. As I've said before, I haven't said in this room, but I say it often in Lagos, it's not just me and God in this relationship. This community, this church thing, this Christianity thing, it's not about me and God, and that's all I need. It's about me and God and you. Me and God and everyone in this room. It's about me and God and everybody in the hallway, on this campus, in the city, in this world. Everyone who claims the name of Christ and the ones who don't claim the name of Christ. Because that's what Christianity is about. It's a community of believers. That's what the church is. A community of people who love Christ, know Christ, and are reaching out and telling other people about Him and loving them into Christ. All with the word love involved in it. Love serves. Sometimes that service calls for sacrifice. And that sacrifice causes suffering, long suffering, patience, kindness. And then it gets the one that surprised me a little bit when I read it this past week. Love sanctifies. You know what the word sanctify means? Set apart for special purpose. Sanctify means to make holy. And I get the image of a collector. Somebody who, you ever see them, like I've seen the show American Pickers. These are these guys who walk into these junk places, and I've seen places like this where there's garbage and signs and stuff all over the place, right? These people just collect things. I know people like this. I've seen people like this. If I had money, I could have the propensity of actually being one of these people. I try not to. That's why God made me poor. So I don't collect things I don't need. And they have all these, and these two guys travel across country and they go into these places and they start looking through the garbage and stuff, and you can tell the stuff that the people love, that the people love the most, because it's the shiny stuff. The stuff that's set apart from everything else. Put in glass cases. Every so often they take it out and dust it, polish it. It's set apart and they love it. How does love sanctify? How can we apply that concept to people, to loving people? Well, Ephesians chapter 5, that we just read, Ephesians chapter 5, verses 25 through 26, talks, this is coming from the concept of husbands to their wives. It says, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. There's the sacrifice part. That he might sanctify her, having cleansed her by the washing of water with the word. So that he might present the church to himself in splendor, without spot or wrinkle or any such thing, that she might be holy and without blemish. God's love sanctified us. Christ's love set us apart. We are now holy, not because we've done anything to be holy, but we are holy. And he was saying, husbands, when you love your wives, you sanctify her, you set her apart. It's a stretch. I'm stretching here. I'm going to admit. But, this is just a theological, philosophical point to play with. Can our love for other people set them apart? Help them to become holy. Help them become one with Christ. Help them to know Christ. Help them to be special. We sanctify them in our lives. We sanctify them by showing them love. We sanctify them by serving them, by sacrificing for them, by suffering with them. In essence, setting them apart, saying, you're special. When I was growing up, there was this guy named Mr. Nozick. It's one of those, and he had a kids' TV program that he would be out there and they'd have the kids sitting up at the stage and bleachers, sitting there, and he'd talk to them, and he'd have little fun things that he does with them, and then he shows Pink Panther movies, cartoons. I love Pink Panther cartoons, so let's go Panther and friends, and they just roll their hands, and it doesn't really do anything, but it makes the kids feel like they're doing something. And every so often, not every so often, but every episode, he says, grab somebody next to you, give them a big hug, and say, I like you and you're special. I felt bad that I'm usually sitting there watching it by myself. I wanted to grab somebody, and I was like, maybe later. Showing somebody the love of Christ, loving somebody, is the same thing as giving them a big hug, saying, I like you and you're special. Not you're special, but you're special. You're important sometimes. So yeah, you're so special. Sometimes it is. Setting them apart, showing them that they're important and that they are loved. Because the greatest thing we all want to know is that somebody out there loves us. Sometimes it's hard, right? Sometimes it's hard to realize that there's anybody out there who can give 2 cents whether you live or die. Sometimes you feel like you're just lost. You're not the only one feeling that way. The world is out there. The world is looking for somebody to love them. God so loved the world. And he sent his only son. And now he's sending you to go tell the world and show the world the love of Christ. So this Christmas and throughout the year, think about the love of God. Think about what He's done for you. And think about and try to figure out how we can do something for someone else. If I give them my love,